Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for Coffee Chat with Starboard. Let's talk about Maximo Anywhere 7.6.4. Just a few quick housekeeping issues before we get started. Everyone except for the presenters is in listen-only mode. This is a new series, and we would welcome your feedback during the discussion as well as any input for future topics. Just submit your questions in the chat box. During today's coffee chat, we'll have about 30 minutes, and we'll be sure to have time for Q&A at the end. And before you ask, yes, we'll send you a copy of the recorded presentation. My name is Alex Duggan, and I will be your MC today. I'm Senior Project Manager with LMI 360, a sales and marketing organization focused on service and technology providers that support the commercial built environment. Leading our chat today is Amy Tatum, Vice President of Starboard Consulting. Amy has over 25 years of experience as an engineer and technology consultant and has managed the implementation of countless Maximo projects. Our other presenter is Doug Carrington, a technical leader with Starboard. Doug's highly versatile, customer-oriented, and brings more than 26 years of experience in the IT industry to our discussion today. Amy and Doug, thank you so much for joining us today. Amy, I will turn the discussion over to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Alex, and welcome, everyone. We appreciate you tuning in with us today from wherever you may be working from home or remotely or still in the office as an essential worker. For those of you that are first responders and are still at the office, we appreciate you. Starboard Consulting is a Maximo implementation firm. We're an IBM business partner, and we've been implementing Maximo as a team for over 20 years now, and have a lot of experience working together and working with a variety of clients. So we're asset management experts, integration experts, have a proven approach and methodology, and offer a full service of Maximo implementations, upgrades, assessments, etc. So what we're doing with these coffee chats, we just thought this would be a great way to connect both with our clients and others in the Maximo community, and just talk about whatever happens to be on your mind. So as Alex said, towards the end when we open it up for Q&A, we'll be looking for suggestions of things that we might chat about in the future. But today's focus is going to be on Maximo Anywhere. So 7.6.4 has fairly recently come out, and it's got some new features and functions about it that we wanted to make sure everybody's familiar with. It is a new streamlined platform that works seamlessly with Maximo, and it does not require the mobile-first server, so we are very excited about that more simplified installation and setup. From a user perspective, ease of use was a big focus for IBM on this release, so you're not going to see a lot of very noticeable differences. The good news with that is you don't have to retrain your user community when you go forward with this upgrade. Anywhere provides support for work, asset, and inventory management. Supports 9 core applications and 5 industry solution applications. So a lot going on in this product. We're pretty excited about this new version of it, and we're going to chat with you a little bit about that today. But before we get started, Alex, I think you wanted to just take a quick poll of our participants.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. We thought we would hear from you. Just what version of Maximo Anywhere are you currently using it, or are you currently using it? So in just a minute, you'll see the survey pop up on your screen. And we would love your feedback. Are you using a more current version, an earlier version, not a version? Great, I see some nice feedback. Thank you. So it looks like people are running the gambit. A lot of people not currently using. We would love for the chat window to hear what you are using. All right, we'll give everyone.
Are you giving away any prizes? Alex, I was wondering if you're giving away
in your
prizes.
Own home.
Well, I just meant whoever can claim they are in the oldest working version of Anywhere, they might deserve a prize.
There you go.
They should. They should. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the survey. Thank you all so much for participating. And Amy and Doug, I'm going to turn this back over to you.
All right, thank you. All right, so let's dive into
Oh,
some
and
details. Oh, go ahead.
sorry, this is Alex again. And if your survey window didn't close, there's a little blue X. You can just X out in the top right corner to make sure you can see the presentation.
All right, thanks. So 764, again, as we said, it's a new streamlined implementation. Doug, I know you've recently installed 764. How did that process go, and what did you see as the biggest changes?
Well, personally, like many of us, I started implementing Anywhere, I guess, with version 7.6.1, then 7.6.2 and 7.6.3. The implementation was always long and difficult, tracking down errors, getting the install to work. There just wasn't a lot of information and a lot of, the path to getting it successful was long and hard, whereas this time around, I pretty much just clicked install and ran through the normal exchange and had very few issues and had it up and working in the afternoon. It was amazing compared to past experiences.
Yeah, that's a big change. I can remember in past experiences that process could take days or even weeks, so that's a huge improvement. Are there any changes that you've seen that the users will see, or new features that clients might take advantage of?
Well, as far as with 7.6.4, depending on what release you're on, I mean, if you're on an older version prior to 7.6.2, 7.6.3, with 7.6.2, they started making changes to make the data lookups more seamless, so you didn't always have to download all the data at one point in time, which drove the users crazy because it took a lot of time depending on your bandwidth. With 7.6.3, you get the split screen functionality to where the users can just see a lot more information on the screen. So all of that is included in 7.6.4. So depending on what release, you'll get those kind of for free and nice. The main changes are the technology with 7.6.4.
Right. So it sounds like as a user, if I'm on a earlier platform, 7.6.1 or 2, I'm probably going to see some big differences. But from 7.6.3 to 7.6.4, it's a pretty seamless user experience change.
Correct, and that's one of the nice things, because a lot of the Anywhere users tend to be more resistant to the changes on their device. If every time we upgrade, it looks different, it causes a lot of training issues. Where with this one, if you're on 7.6.3, it looks pretty much the same, and you just get the advantages of the streamlined architecture.
All right. So with that streamlined architecture, there's some new features where things might work a little quicker, a little differently, because there's no middle component now that it has to go through, as far as maybe like push notifications or LDAP security, those types of things?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I've seen is that since we totally eliminated the mobile first server, we had a number of environments, some of our own demo environments we use for starboard training and just general show and tell kind of sessions. We had a lot of issues depending on the VPN connectivity that Anywhere might be able to connect one time in the day, and then it wouldn't for weeks, and it was very frustrating. The troubleshooting is difficult because you've got that whole other layer, not knowing where the problem is. Is it between the device and mobile first, or mobile first and Maximo? Whereas, some of our environments that we've had a lot of connectivity, unavailability. I did a new install on one of those environments, and I was very pleasantly surprised it worked right away and seemed fast as ever. I mean, the OSLC connections and Anywhere in general are very fast, but that VPN component seems to a lot of times cause trouble from a latency.
Gotcha. Okay. So given the current situation, I know a lot of people are working from home or working in alternate locations from what they might might normally have been doing. So how do you see Anywhere as a mobile product helping companies to get their work performed?
You know, in general, you know, just having that freedom to work anywhere, disconnected or not, is one of the main advantages of Anywhere from that point of view. And since it's directly tied to Maximo, all the functionality you have in Maximo, you potentially have the ability in Anywhere, depending on which applications you're using. And it is very customizable, you know, so most every client we work with, they need some form of customizations that make life better for the end user. So that just helps them do their day-to-day job without having to be in core Maximo.
Yeah, I guess most field users were probably already working on Anywhere and working in remote locations, but for folks that maybe were desktop users and they're now displaced working at home, working on personal computers or laptops or something when they might have been in a more normal office situation prior, Anywhere as a lightweight mobile solution could potentially help them still get access to Maximo without necessarily being in the office and on their big screen that they might be used to. So all great information. Let's go to the audience and see what kind of questions folks have. If you all could just put those in the chat window, as Alex said, we'll take a look at what we've got and answer what we can. So we'll give it a few minutes for some to come in. So going back to the challenges that you mentioned in the past and prior installations have not always gone so smoothly. I think this is probably the biggest win on this version. But again, how do you see that? What challenges have clients experienced in the past, and how does this version alleviate those?
Well, you know, a lot of the times, you know, with the mobile first layer in there, if we would end up taking a lot of time debugging, just trying to find out where the issue was. And to be honest, you know, as from my selfish developer side, I like the ease of, you know, there's only the device and Maximo, and I don't have to guess about the black box in the middle that I don't know what is doing, and I can see what's happening better. And also from a implementation point of view, most of the time we were putting mobile first on a separate server, and that was just a lot more boxes to back up and maintain and keep up and running. So the idea that I can have everything on a single box, you know, because a lot of times our development box or that we use for development or for demoing, we like to have it on a single server, and it just makes everything that much more efficient.
Sure. All right. So you mentioned earlier when you did the install on our demo environment that you had it up and running pretty quickly, it sounds like. So if there was a new customer that was just getting into Anywhere for the first time, how quickly could they be up and running?
You know, I would probably say, you know, that process probably took me in the 2 to 4 hour range. You know, and a lot of that was just working through exactly, you know, new documentation, what do we really need, and since I've worked through that, it's pretty straightforward. You know, from a build process, you know, that's an out-of-the-box, native Anywhere, which a lot of times when we're first working with Anywhere, we try to use it as out of the box as we can. The users can, you know, just download 764 onto their device, you know, from the Play stores, and as long as it's 764. If you're using 763 or earlier already and have some of the containers out there already, I will note that you have to, if you're using 764, you have to download the new 764 from the stores for it to work. But if you're using 763 and want to continue partially using it, you can have both on the same device. But obviously, I wouldn't want to maintain them both, so I'd move to get in one platform if I could.
Okay. So basically, if we've got a stable Maximo environment, and that's got to be on 7608, 7609, I believe, as a starting point. But if you've got an established Maximo, it sounds like downloading and installing Anywhere and getting up on running on that in a pilot mode could be as short as a week-long project, maybe even less. If you've got that foundation,
yeah.
I guess probably the one thing I would add into that is the people side of that and the process side of it. The technology part, I know, as an implementer, I've always said the technology is the easiest piece of what we do. So if we were going to roll that out, we would want to make sure that there's training and there's processes and people understand how they're supposed to use the product, not just that they download it and start using it. Although from a user interface, I would say the usability is pretty intuitive, and we've not really needed a heavy lift of training even for new users to get accustomed to the platform. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree. Probably where I would expand is that, we do spend a lot of time analyzing the gaps between how you've implemented Maximo now compared to what is in Anywhere. So if you have required custom fields, they'll be required, and they need to either be added to Anywhere, or you need to have, potentially you could, if there are things that can be defaulted, you can maybe implement auto scripts as well, because since this is all going through the REST and the MBOs, you can take advantage of all the core functionality that you use right now. But at the same time, if you have special things you're doing against core, they will impact Anywhere. So that analysis is real important,
Sure, good point. That kind of leads into the next question here then. If you've got a client with I have a lot of customizations or configurations in my current Anywhere version, will I be able to upgrade, or do I need to start over with this new platform?
Yeah, Anywhere, in the 762, 763, 764 does a good job of upgrading, based on your existing code. So once you've installed, it will, when you do the upgrade, it's going to try to apply the code as well. And, as long as you're using a lot of their best practices, which, if you're changing some of the JavaScript within Anywhere, those customizations you'll want to put in the custom folder. That way they don't get overlaid. Then some of the core, like the app XML, which is the main XML for the device, you'll update that directly for the most part. So typically what I'll do is I keep track of my changes, and then afterward, on the key pieces like the app XML, or I'll run a quick compare and make sure that something didn't get overlaid. So it's been a pretty easy process, from that point of view. I just do the upgrade, pull out my key components, run a quick compare, and then if there are things that need merged or got overlaid, I'll just pull those in real quick and rebuild the apps, and I'm good to go.
Okay, great. So that brings up another question here. How easy is it to modify an app if you're adding a field, validating against a domain, something like that?
It's not as easy as in Core Maximo. It doesn't have a nice GUI like we have there. But, depending on, me personally, when I'm making changes in Core Maximo, I'll, export the application XML and make the changes directly most of the time if I'm doing more complicated things. And pretty much in Anywhere, that's what it looks like. You've got, some XML that has, your fields, your objects, all your lookups and that. So there's more involved, but it's all right there, and there's only a handful of normal activities that you do a lot of. If you start adding new objects, that gets more complicated. But I will say that IBM has some examples and some training. If you've got people that you work with that has some technical skills with scripting and basic XML, that they probably have a good chance to be successful. But more complicated things get more complicated. It's code. And you'll have to have an Eclipse environment and do it if you're going to do really heavy lifting.
Sure. All right. So a couple questions have come in around licensing and pricing. For the purposes of our chat today, I'm not going to try to attempt any of the pricing questions because there would just be too much variability in that. Licensing Anywhere is an add-on module, so you would need to be licensed for Anywhere for your users to utilize that. So again, we would need more details to be able to answer that specifically, but you could get back with your Maximo rep, or we'd be happy to take those questions offline to see about answering those. We've got another one here, a client running Maximo 7.5. Wow, that one goes way back, so let's chat about an upgrade for you. But Maximo 7.5 with SAP Mobile Inventory for PO receiving and physical counts. If we were going to go with Maximo 7.6, would you suggest Anywhere or an upgrade to SAP Mobile for Maximo 7.6? So I think, from my perspective, I would recommend Anywhere. I think, as Doug had mentioned previously, that product has come a long, long way from where it was when it first got launched, and there's a lot of good improvements there that make it a pretty simple and seamless install, and it works well with the native Maximo products. But Doug, I know you've worked in both SAP and Anywhere, so are there some other key differences that you might point out for that?
In general, what I will say with, from an Anywhere point of view, there's obviously with mobility, we're getting more and more in that space. But where I tend to favor Anywhere is that IBM is very committed to Anywhere, and anything we do in core is going to be impacted in Anywhere, so they'll always be in sync. Whereas a lot of the add-ons or external products like this, if Maximo or Anywhere makes changes, it might impact the usability of your product. That's where I get a little nervous as a developer, mainly because I might get the call at night saying it's broken. Can you fix it? And I hate to say there's no fixing it.
Seamless integration there. All right. So thinking back to 7.6.1, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say and I kind of mentioned it, one of the advantages of Anywhere going through the MBOs like it is typically on most mobile devices, or most mobile platforms and products, you can be somewhat limited on the kinds of changes you can make. And I've with Anywhere tied to Maximo, I can take advantage of auto scripts and various things that if an event occurs in Anywhere, I can incorporate those things. Like asset swap was very difficult and not a part of Anywhere, but leveraging some of the core tools, for a client, we were able to do some pretty complicated things. So that's one advantage of keeping it all within the IBM side of things.
Sure. Good point. And how different is customizing 7.6.4 compared to 7.6.1? I know you've worked in all the product versions, so have you seen a big difference in the back-end tool sets as far as the development goes?
No, not really. It's from that point, it's mainly JavaScript and XML. So from a native layer that I have access to, that hasn't changed. So which has been nice. I haven't had to learn different tool sets all the time as we go. So I've been pleased with that for sure.
So
and
would
they
you
keep
say
rolling
the
more and more
courses,
into the product.
yeah. Would you say the courses that IBM has for configuring and customizing from 761 would still work to use as a foundation for the newer architecture?
Yeah, as far as the coding, and it's funny, just before this class I was looking at some IBM stuff I had on a, an Anywhere training guides and some of the customizations, and they still ring true with 764, same. When I compare the objects, they're still the same, and that's why it upgrades so easily, because they haven't changed those platforms. Short of, other than the mobile first side of things. Once you get rid of that, then you're good. From the 764 point of view.
Well, great. All right. Well, we've only got a few minutes left, so some great questions, and we appreciate everybody who's submitted those and engaged with us. We do have some additional things coming up. We are going to make these coffee chats a regular series, so if you have some suggested topics, we would love to hear those. We want to stay engaged with our community and do as much as we can to support you all in these just unprecedented times. So keeping everyone safe and healthy and at a distance, but yet still being together is important to us at Starboard as we go through. So some upcoming resources, if you do want more information about Maximo Anywhere, IBM is hosting a webinar on the topic actually a week from today. So on the 22nd, there's a link to register for that. We're going to do these coffee chats on a bi-weekly basis, so we'll meet again on April 29th. And our topic for that one is taking Maximo from the shop floor to the top floor. So hoping to have some good dialogue there just about how people are using Maximo, from the maintenance technicians up to the executive suite, and what kind of tools and support you can get for that. And on that one, we're hoping to do it as a more interactive video conference, so we can see some faces to go along with the voices and have a more interactive conversation there. And of course, for those of you that had more specific questions, if you would like a demo, we would be happy to show you some examples. If you're in need of any upgrade services or training or anything else for your Maximo, we are here and ready and able to assist in a remote environment until we're all allowed to travel again. So please feel free to reach out and contact us regarding that. So Alex, I think it's back over to you.
Yes. Amy, Doug, thank you so much. Really helpful information, and thank you so much to everyone who joined us today for our inaugural coffee chat. I hope you found it useful and helpful, and we look forward to chatting with you again on the 29th. Thank you all so much. Amy, Doug, thanks again. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Alex.